Hi everyone, I've come on today because I want to talk to you about our podcast guest who's coming on the Executive Edge next week. Now, when I interviewed Dr. Sharon Melnick, I had a really great conversation, and the principal reason is because her long-standing expertise of coaching has stood her in great stead regarding her field of expertise. And she's essentially an expert in resilience and managing stress, and I think at core that's what both of us discussed. So it was great when she shared her experience of the people that she'd supported and some of the tips and tools. But I also wanted to talk to you about the fact that she does this in a really pragmatic way, which I found very useful. I'm still listening to it actually, which is her first book, Success Under Stress. Now this is available on all of the major platforms typically, but I actually picked it up as an audiobook because those of you who know me will know I like doing my walks in the morning and listening to stuff. And it's really great. One of the most straightforward tools she teaches, I have processed quite genuinely both for my own life but that of my clients as well. And she talks about what she calls the 90-minute sprint plus the 15-minute rest. And when you stop and apply this, it's actually a really great tool. So let's give you an example. She cites two typical people coming into work. No difference between them in terms of their intensity, the demands on them, the goals they set, the expectations they've got. But let's call the first one by a random name and say he's called Alan. Alan comes into work at say 8 a.m. in the morning, grabs a coffee, gets onto his desk, gets onto his emails, and within a very short period of time has what you and I would know as hit the ground running. He then has his first meeting, say by 9, and it's pretty back to back until lunchtime, when he then takes a bit of a breather, grabs a sandwich, eats that at his desk, checks his emails again, and then at the afternoon follows suit. And by the end of the day, quite understandably, especially if he doesn't get home until something like 6 p.m, he's pretty exhausted. Now, if you look at this through the practical process of saying, okay, how effective is he? Then she believes he's about 90% effective when he first comes in. But because of all of that, which is a very heavy drain, he's probably dropped to more like 40% by the time he's in his last meeting or the end of the day, which isn't that great to take home, is it? Because he's likely to be tired and his family are going to want him, and it's quite possible he's finding that pretty tough. Now, if you contrast that with someone else, let's call this random person Tom. When Tom comes into work, he still gets there for 8 a.m, hits the ground running with a cup of coffee, but pauses and enjoys the coffee. Then slowly gets into his emails for 35, 45, maybe even an hour, and then doesn't start his first meeting until more like 10 a.m. Goes for a 90-minute sprint, which means intense, paying attention to work, and then deliberately takes 15 minutes off. No big email contact, no calls, no nothing else, and just rests his mind and all of that engagement. Now that 15 minutes of doing something completely different gives him a rest and a pause. And this is rather like athletes, which is where I think the expression came from. Sprint, rest. And then perhaps we're already at lunch, and instead of sitting there with the sandwich still doing a great deal of intensity, Tom takes a complete break at lunchtime, perhaps heads out for a walk, gets some fresh air, maybe a few conversations around the office, and then doesn't start again until, let's say, arguably 1 o'clock, sprint, rest, cup of tea perhaps, sprint, rest, still finishes at 6 p.m. But when you contrast the two, he came in with a 90% efficiency in the morning, and chances are he's still finishing his day at 60 or maybe even 70%. And I've seen this play out. I can relate to what this means. Now, my recommendation is that this is what she's really espousing in terms of behavioural action, and I think that's excellent, because my piece instead is often pace yourself, which is performance, is related to the actions you take, the choices you make, and the energy you result with. But actually, I think she does a better job than I did of breaking down what that looks like in practice. So do have a think. You can listen to her episode. It's online next week. I know that you'll really enjoy it. And she's written her second book, which is in all the major bookstores already, called In Your Power. And I think she's a really great guest, so do take a listen. It's been been a real joy. Thanks very much, everyone. Take care for now.